Hello viewers, I'm Ron Grant coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the Virgin Islands. You're watching 284 Media. Thank you so much for your time. The H. Lavity Stout Community College is pleased to announce the sponsors of the 2022 BVI Literary Arts Festival, also known as the LIT Festival, from the 3rd to the 6th of November as part of the Department of Culture's Culture and Tourism Month. This year's festival will showcase and feature literature, film, music, and spoken word under the theme Unspoken, Unwritten, Unknown. The very diverse program features writers and speakers from the Caribbean and its diaspora through a series of panels, readings, films, workshops, lectures, and a local book fair. I'm today honored to be joined by poet and writer Andre Bagoo out of Trinidad and Tobago, who is one of this year's BVI Lit Fest featured presenters. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Freeze. Choose your mix, choose your flavor.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back and thank you so much for sticking with us. As promised, I am joined by Mr. Andre Bagoo out of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Bagoo, thank you so much for your time and welcome to 284 Media.
Thank you so much, Ron. I'm really pleased to be here.
It is our pleasure as well. As I mentioned, the 2022 BVI Literary and Arts Festival, also known as the BVI Lit Fest here in Tortola, will be taking center stage from the 3rd to the 6th of November. This series of panels, readings, films, workshops, lectures, of course, and a local book fair will feature a number of Caribbean professionals and featured artists like yourself from across the region. I want to begin by putting into perspective, just for persons who may not have been familiar. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a poet, writer, and essayist from Trinidad and Tobago. I've recently published my fiction debut, The Dreaming, which is a short story collection. I've also recently published a new poetry collection, Narcissus, which I'm going to be reading from at the festival. I was a part of the inaugural BVI festival. I think it was in 2021, and I was really heartened to have been asked to be there by Richard Georges. And at the time it was mentioned that, okay, next year you're going to come. And I just thought, oh, sure, because we were still in the pandemic and I wasn't quite sure what would happen. But yeah, I'm really pleased to be a part of the festival this year. And I'm really looking forward to participating in several of the events that are on the lineup.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned, of course, a little bit about your work, but I want to get into the Lit Festival and the very highly anticipated presentations. Of course, you're going to be sharing your work, but as a Caribbean poet and writer, how important is it for you to not only be a part of this festival, but for persons of all walks of life to be able to also come and share the stage with persons like yourself?
Well, it's incredibly important because literature and art generally has meaning and it has value. It's how we see ourselves, and it's also how we reimagine the future or reconceptualize what we want from the future. And that's actually one of the panels that I'm going to be on, which will be with the poet Desiree Bailey and Anna Portnoy Bremer, called The Poems Reimagined. And in that panel, we're going to examine the role of poetry in shaping the imagination, and we're also going to examine the very practical nuts and bolts things, like where do poems come from? How do individual poets get inspiration? How do they what craft tools do they deploy? And I think that's incredibly important for emerging writers in particular to be exposed to have access to these sorts of discussions and just to have that sense of community. That's very important if we are thinking about bolstering publishing and the arts generally within the Caribbean space.
I'm so happy that you spoke about reimagining the future and, of course, emerging artists and writers. Speaking of emerging writers and poets, I want you to speak to that audience, not only here in the Virgin Islands, but across the Caribbean region. What encouragement would you give to young and upcoming poets and writers who might be a bit apprehensive about stepping into that very vulnerable space of sharing their work with the world?
Well, I think it's very important to lean into that vulnerability, to embrace your own truth, and to understand the importance of having a voice and having that voice heard. That's a huge part of it. And writing for me has always been something that has been deeply, deeply personal. I started writing as a boy. My mom would tell me stories, and sometimes I would type them up verbatim. And once I did this, and she read the entire story that I had typed up to a friend over the phone, and that's how I discovered this thrill of what it's like to be published and what it's like to have an audience.
Amazing.
So I think emerging writers need to just go where they are uncomfortable going, and to just keep on doing it, to not be daunted, and to understand as well, why you're doing what you're doing.
You mentioned earlier about the future emerging. I want to talk about the future of writing and poetry in the Caribbean. We have, of course, been dealing with a lot across the region within the last few years, and dating back even to decades. I want to talk about the truth in our stories and being able to document them. What would you say to not just individuals, but territories, leaders of countries, in regards to making sure that the documentation of each of our Caribbean islands is manifested into manuscripts?
Yeah, it's one of the things that literature does, and I'm reminded of a quote by Ezra Pound, which is, "Literature is news that's always news." And this is in a nutshell is what it does. I think a good novel brings us news about the world. It tells us not what is going on in areas or in spaces that we would not otherwise encounter, or it may also bring to the fore ideas about those events, and it may help us to process a lot of what is happening within the world right now. I also think literature is essential as a form of building empathy and building bridges across divides. So that, in a sense, is really incredible, and it's what literature can do and what literature can do best. And so that's why a festival like this is so important. When we have writers like Tiffany Yannick, Sharma Taylor, Kai Miller, doing that work and doing that in the Caribbean space, and perhaps more to the point of what you're asking, not only excavating or preserving stories from within the region, but sharing those stories across the international literary community. Because at the end of the day, we are in a globalized world, and that is one of the most important things that literature can do. And in the Caribbean, because we have so many intersections, so many different heritages and cultures that have come and converged on this space, we are uniquely poised to play a role in international arts and writing.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the connectivity of the region, because one of the things that we fail to understand most times is that a lot of the issues that we face, a lot of the successes that we experience as well are not isolated. Many of them are interconnected across the region. So thank you so much for that. Mr. Bagoo, we are so excited and happy to have you being featured, of course, at this year's BVI Lit Fest 2022. We look forward to receiving you in the territory. Before we go, I would like you to speak to the viewing audience, those who are going to be attending and those who might be a bit apprehensive and still undeciding about attending the BVI Lit Fest. What do you have to say to the audience as it pertains to what they can expect?
Well, I think you can expect an incredible lineup of incredibly talented and brilliant poets and writers like myself. Kidding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as well. But also, you can expect a lot of important discussions and debates and discussions to take place. You know, there's going to be panels, Ron, on climate change, on the challenges facing the media. You're leading one of those.
Yes.
And also, you know, another panel that I'm on is on the importance of literary magazines and literary publications within the space, where we are going to talk about things like, you know, are we gatekeepers or gardeners, literary
Wow.
magazines. So there's a wide range of issues that are going to be touched on, and there's just a stunning array of talent. So you're in for a treat.
Amazing. Well, we thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to receiving you again, viewers. The H. Lively Stout Community College 2022 BVI Lit Fest, of course, in collaboration with the Department of Culture and Tourism Month, will take place from the 3rd to the 6th of November. And we were just speaking to poet and writer Mr. Andre Bagoo out of Trinidad and Tobago, who is one of this year's featured presenters. I will see you at the Lit Fest. Thank you so much for your time. Ron Grant for 284 Media.